Okay, so
Yes. Let me just say welcome to everyone who's tuning in here. This is Suella's with us today. Welcome, Suella.
hi Daniel.
All right. So for those of you who don't know Suella, you were actually a member of our immunity program for a while. We've been in contact. You've been commenting on our videos and checking out with Instagram. But you know, I think you learned things from our channel that I think were valuable and helpful to you. But some struggle has continued. So I said, why don't we talk about it here as a podcast episode, and we can hopefully share something with you and the community that will be helpful. So that was a little introduction there. But yeah,
Yep.
Suella, tell us how things are going and what questions you have.
Oh, okay. Well, when I last contacted you, it was in response to the signal token concept, which sort of made sense a little bit to me um, concerning my struggle. So, it's a couple of years since I joined your course and found out about your material, and I'm completely convinced by it, but I continued to struggle. And At that time that the Signal Token podcast came out, I was really struggling. I just had a couple of weeks of so little sleep that I was just desperate. Um, and it occurred to me that because what's happened is that I don't just have poor sleep, but I have almost no sleep. Um, and, I'll be in bed for quite a few hours just trying to relax, and then I'll get sick of that and I'll get up. But it seems to me that once I've got the idea that I'm not going to sleep, that's just, um, that's what happens. And I don't end up getting any sleep until virtually dawn. Um, And it occurred to me after I heard you talk about the phobia concept that um, I've befriended wakefulness. So I know I can survive tomorrow if I don't get much sleep. But I haven't, um, maybe I haven't faced the fear that is there, that is actually preventing me from getting back into bed and going back to sleep and actually distilling my mind. Um, but every now and then it works, and then I'll have a good couple of weeks where I'll sleep sort of 3 nights out of 4, and then suddenly absolutely nothing just for weeks. It's I guess I am gradually improving, but it's been a much slower process than I had hoped for. When I first heard your material and I was filled with optimism, um, I'm not filled with that optimism anymore.
Totally here, Stella, and I'm actually really grateful that you're here because lately, like some people have said, like Daniel, it's nice to hear these success stories, people sharing how things gotten easier, but it would be nice to hear from someone who's actually having some questions like us, etc. So I'm grateful you're here, Suella, and I want to say firstly that I think there's something very true in what you saw there that we teach a lot about like befriending wakefulness, like whatever we can do to make it more acceptable to be okay awake. That's helpful, but sometimes I hear from people who say like, "Oh, I'm totally befriending wakefulness, but it's like I'm still like really struggling here." And I realized, and this was part of that token and signal teaching that uh, the wakefulness is really just it's something that the brain has started to represent danger, and the signal that is sent then to us when the brain thinks we're in danger is like fear. The fear is like the thing that's going to supposed to make us like escape and get to safety, right? And if we go like, aha, all I need to do is like make myself okay with being awake, without understanding that actually that's just a token. It's just on a more superficial level. If we do that, like I have to befriend wakefulness, so I escape the struggle. Then it's sort of like we're befriending the token, but we're trying to run away from the signal, which is actually
Mm.
cause more. It actually causes a struggle for us. So I think you saw this, and did you also kind of see where this leads to? Where it's kind of like
Well,
befriending.
no, I haven't been able to get to move on because I don't know how. to confront those fears. And I, once my mind is in that frame where I think I'm just aware, I'm not going to sleep. That's it. But then, for example, last night I had I just sort of was sick of it. Went to bed, went to sleep. No thoughts, just. But it's a mystery to me. You know, um, I'm not aware of struggling all the time, but I am aware that once there's a thought in my mind, it's not as if I'm obsessing about it, but anyway, that's where I'm at.
Totally here. And you said something very, very interesting. I think we could learn so much from. It's like you said the other night, I was just sick of it, and I just went
Yeah.
to sleep. When you said I'm sick of it, what do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Well, it was actually a funny story because um, the previous night, I had thought that I was talking to you in the morning, right? Because I've got my dates wrong because, we're in Australia and it's a day early. And so I said to my husband, he often stays up really late. And sometimes when that happens, I'll be aware that he hasn't come to bed and that turns my mind on and then I can't get back to sleep. And I'd had a run of bad nights and I just wanted to be really clear when I spoke to you. So I said to him, you think you could come to bed early tonight so that so that I'm not worried about you, so that I can wake up fresh? Anyway, I mean, I realise it's completely sort of none of my business when he goes to bed. And it was a funny thing. We laughed about it, but it was sort of like I was out of line, right? So anyway, I didn't get to sleep that night at all, and woke up completely wrecked. He's sitting here waiting to speak to you, and realised it was the wrong day. So then last night, I just said, "Oh, I'm so over this. I know I was out of line. I'm just going to bed. You come to bed whenever you want. I went to bed and I went to sleep." And it's just sort of crazy. There's just that aspect of my brain that, of course, like, man, we don't have a lot of control over our brain, do we, over what it throws up to us.
We don't, but we can still see these. I call this actually sort of a like the magical moment when you truly you're like when you said like I'm sick of it. It basically means whatever happens now, it will happen. I have no control. I'm tired of this whole thing. I'm tired of trying, and then we sleep. Because there's no effort there. And when the question, of course, and then the mind often, of course, then goes like, aha, that's what we have to do again. But then we're trying to recreate it, and then there's no magic. So it's tricky like that. But that said, Suella, let's go back to how you had kind of seen the idea behind this kind of token and signal teaching, and you were like, but I don't know how to do that. Well,
Yeah, I don't understand what it really even means. Um, yeah,
basically, I want to say this to you and everyone that's sitting in here that with that, what it means is basically that it is helpful to when we talk about befriending wakefulness. It actually means not only it actually means more like being okay with being awake and whatever feelings come with us being awake, which is that signal, which is that fear. So in a way, it becomes sort of like befriending wakefulness and even befriending our emotions, like befriending the anxiety, befriending the fear, which doesn't mean we have to like it. Nobody likes it. It's unnatural to say like I like being anxious. Nobody likes it. But befriending it means kind of like letting it happen without trying to stop it, something of that nature. So what that means, like in practical terms, is something like when we find ourselves like awake at night and we're starting to get annoyed and we're starting to get maybe anxious and frustrated and scared, then that is sort of our opportunity to be like, okay, this is the very signal that I, as much as I can in this moment, as much as I can, I want to sit with this. I want to be in this moment without trying to escape it. Sometimes we try to escape it. Sometimes we're like, this is I can't have enough of this, and we try to escape it, which leads to more struggle actually. But what can we do? We try right? But
Mm.
when we find it available inside us to kind of befriend the signal, that can be really helpful. And I think it's actually what you said about like facing our fear. That is what really helps in a more profound way, actually. So did that clarify at all?
Yeah, it does. I guess the thing is that when it's happening over an extended frame of time, like hours, um, it's hard to sit with that for a long time. But I'm having some other counselling, and my counsellor suggested the obvious thing, which is observe. So observe, and I have started to do that because that just takes a little bit away from the emotion of, how it's feeling. I'm hearing some echoing. Are you?
On my end, it sounds fine. Let me
Okay,
look.
that's fine now.
But yes, I think yeah, I think observing is in a way it's a way of saying the same thing, which is instead of like engaging and trying to stop something, we look at it, we observe it, we accept it, we let it be. It's the same really concept or idea, but that can be really helpful.
Yeah, it's just a little bit removed from the thing that I don't seem to understand, which is how to confront it or face it. Or, I'm thinking of the phobia concept where you expose yourself to the thing you're phobic of, and don't allow yourself to react. And if you achieve that, you've sort of worked your way towards overcoming that phobia. Um, and I can understand that concept. Um, but yeah, how you do that in our circumstance, I don't know.
Yeah, no, this is another very common and very on point observation, which is that we can understand something cognitively, but then the follow up question becomes, but how do I put that into practice? How do I actually do that, if you will? And the closest thing I've come to answer that is something you may have read in the newsletters, because I think you read those. Is this North Star idea, which is, you know, um, if we look at how a company works, where there's like, I don't know, a leadership, and then there's many people working there, there's a certain kind of environment where we humans actually do our best work. And if I ask you or anyone in the community, I think everybody will feel the same. So if we have two environments, if we say one environment is like environment A, where we have a manager who looks over our shoulder, checks every single thing we do. They give us constant feedback and monitor, etc. That's option A. And option B is when somebody tells us, this is kind of the big vision, and you have the freedom and our trust to get there however you see fit. In which scenario do you think we do our best job? What do you think, Svella?
Yeah, we've got autonomy. Yeah.
We like that. We like option B,
Mm.
exactly.
Mm.
And it is sort of the same like within us. So when you understand on a cognitive level that, if I am more of an observer, if when I'm faced with this fear at night, for example, I'm more willing to be with it, expose myself to it, etc., that is helpful to me. That can be sort of our North Star. That's our vision. But the sort of instruction we want to give our brain is you figure out how to get there. We give you our brain, we give you the trust and the freedom to figure out how to get there. Because when we go sort of like, how do I do it? What should I do? How about this? How about try this? Then we're sort of micromanaging, and then it becomes hard for the brain because it doesn't have the freedom to make changes. So it's about kind of like creating a North Star, and then let the brain figure out the details. That can really help. It's a little, again, a little intangible, but that's the closest I've come to give somebody an idea of how it can be helpful. But did that make sense, that analogy?
Yeah, I think that, and maybe this will help other people. I just didn't expect it to take so long. Um, and I see other people who were in the course at the same time as me who well and truly overcome insomnia, and I keep struggling. I have improved. So I guess that I'm sleeping well probably 50% of the time, Hard to say, maybe 40% of the time. Once I was only sleeping well once every 10 days or something like that. So that's an improvement. It's just that when I'm not sleeping, you get feel fairly desperate, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but maybe I just need to be realistic that at my age and having had insomnia for so long, um, that, you know, it is, well, it obviously is, it's taking longer.
You can't take, I mean, always when we have the sort of expectation that it can take a while, it's helpful to us because there's less pressure. That I think is true. And just I just for every and somebody who's tuning in here to know, if I remember correctly, you struggled with sleep for decades, right?
Okay, 25 years, yeah.
Yeah, which is a long time. But that said, with that in mind, I think there is this one thing that, and I think you know what I'm about to say, Suella, but there's one thing that I think helps more than like anything else that we teach, and it is something that really applies, I think, when we find ourselves asking, um, sort of like, why is it taking me so long? What am I doing wrong? You know,
Yeah,
why can't I get it, etc.
yeah.
And the thing is that these can seem like just open-ended exploratory questions, but they are a form of like us criticizing ourselves, you know. And
Yeah.
and so I think when we see that, what really we're invited to is that self-kindness. Like, it's okay, you know. I haven't done anything wrong, you know. It takes a little while to learn, and just be like really kind and gentle with ourselves. That can make such a big difference. So, and
Mm.
I know you know a lot of this, but did that make sense in this context of?
Oh, yeah. And when I read your follow up, we talked about that. Well, look, it all comes down to self kindness. Um, Once again, I didn't really understand what that meant, you know, except that I have been having this other counselling, and we spent a session working on, oh, I can't think of the term, but it's basically about um, accepting yourself with whatever flaws you have. And, you know, I came home, I had quite a clear revelation. I came home and I slept for 10 days in a row. So I can see that it's tied up with like really deep patterns of self talk and that sort of thing. But
That's
unfortunately, as soon as I had that achievement, um, I then went back, reported to my counsellor. We were both very excited, and then I stopped sleeping.
yeah, which is, yeah. So I mean, it's a classic thing that happens. That I want to say that what you found there, I think, is real. It's true. It's like when we're no longer like pressuring ourselves, we're like the self acceptance. Things just become so much easier. Sleep happens by itself. But of course, the brain is like, it wants to have like control. It wants to be like, aha, I figured it out. It's this thing is gonna make me sleep, and then we have some struggle again. But this is just part of the learning process again. Like when the brain kind of finally understands that there's no point in trying to make, you know, and whenever it tries to make something a trick, then it actually creates more struggle for us. Every time we learn that, we were a little closer to a place where it just stops creating like trying to find tricks, I think.
Yes, yeah,
Right.
yeah, I agree.
Very well. Well, it was really nice connecting with you. And I know we only spoke for 20 minutes here, and I have to leave in about 15 minutes too. But since we're connected here, like, any other questions you have or thoughts?
Oh, I don't think so, Daniel. I think your stuff's great, and I really always appreciate hearing and reading your stuff. And I follow Alina too. She's just, every time I read the stuff, I think, yes, I understand. Yes, it warms my heart. Yes, I'll be all right.
Sounds good. Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing, and just be in touch, and
Yes.
we'll go from there.
Okay. Thanks,
Okay.
Daniel.
Bye now.
Bye.